It's fall, y'all, and you know what that means. That means it's time to do our fall baking. Today, it rained last night. It's a little gray and it's really nice and cool out, so that means it's a perfect day to get this baking started. We've got a bunch of things we're going to be making today. All of them are non-pumpkin goodies. I will have another video later that's all about pumpkin, but today's video will focus on all those yummy fall desserts that don't need pumpkin. So we're going to do a brown butter, maple, and brown sugar cookie, some soft and chewy ginger snap cookies, cranberry orange shortbread cookies, and maple glazed apple blondies. I've never made any of these recipes before, but they all look and sound delicious, so we're going to have those. So let's head on in and get started. Alright, welcome to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey. If this is not your first visit to my channel, welcome back. I really appreciate you. So on my channel, we focus on all things homesteading, cooking, baking, gardening, food preservation, animal care, all of that fun stuff that I love so much. This video is dealing with the recipes that do not include pumpkin. As I said earlier, there'll be another video where we're doing all about pumpkin. So we're going to start with our brown butter, maple, and brown sugar cookies. So we need 1 3/4 sticks of salted butter, which I always have salted, so even when it calls for unsalted. And we are going to put it in a pan and let it melt and start cooking to make our brown butter. All right, so this is 2 sticks. So we'll cut off our 1/4 stick, put the rest of it in our pot, and we're going to, I'm just going to get that started melting down in this pan. While that's melting, I'm out of brown sugar, so I'm going to go ahead and make some brown sugar. So I'm going to let that start to melt, and we're going to get our brown sugar making. Alright, so if you've never made your own brown sugar before, it's very simple. All you need is just regular white sugar. Mine is not super white because it's cane sugar, so it looks a little bit darker already, but it is just regular granulated sugar. And to that, you're just going to add some molasses. Very slowly. I do have another jug of molasses that I will use to fill up this jar. I should have just done that first. And so you can make light or dark brown sugar just based on the amount of molasses that you add to your sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and just add some molasses. We need some dark brown sugar. So we'll let that just mix. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in my brown sugar container so that it's out of my mixer. They help the brown sugar keep things, stay soft. Yeah. Alright, so we've got our brown sugar that we'll probably use most of it today. If you've never seen this, you can put marshmallows. There's lots of other things you can do, but you can put marshmallows in your brown sugar and they will help it stay moist so that it doesn't get all dried up and hard to use. Alright, so let's go back to our butter. Turn that down while I was doing the brown sugar because I had to go fill my sugar container. So we're just going to cook this until it starts to turn a nice, pretty golden brown. And once the butter starts getting hot, you want to keep stirring it so that it doesn't burn. You just want it to be a nice, pretty brown. We don't want it scorched, obviously. That would not taste good in our cookies. So while we wait for our butter to brown, I'm going to go ahead and wash off some of these eggs. Some of them are pretty dirty. And so I am going to put this in the dishwasher. This egg is broken, so we're going to toss it. Oh, it's starting to get a nice pretty brown. You guys can see that. So I'm going to let it cook for just another minute, and then we are going to, we can't move on until this is cooled and kind of solidified. So what I'm going to do is put it in a bowl, and then we'll put it in the freezer and let it cool really quickly. All right, so I'm going to set this in the freezer, let it sit about 10 or 15 minutes, and then it should be good for us to use. When our butter is cooled, we're going to go ahead and cream it together with 1 1/3 cups of our brown sugar that we just made. Start this again. So we need 1 3/4 of our brown sugar. Go ahead and mix our dry ingredients together. We need 2 1/2 cups of flour. I'm using a 1/2 cup measure here. Alrighty, so there's our 2 1/2 cups. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm just going to stir that together, and then it'll be ready when we're ready to put it into our mixture. So I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 350. So we want to add 3 tablespoons of white sugar and 3 tablespoons of our brown sugar in a bowl and mix it together. And we're going to roll our cookie balls in this before we bake them. All we're really doing is making this light brown sugar instead of dark brown sugar, but that's fine. And I'll just go ahead and mix this together with a fork. Alright, so that is ready. Alright, so our butter has partially solidified, so we're going to go ahead and, there we go. We're going to go ahead and dump it in with our brown sugar. So we just want to cream this together until it's nice and smooth. Alright, so now we're going to add 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. So these are our own eggs, so I'm going to go ahead and pour those in a bowl first. Alrighty. Then we need a teaspoon of vanilla and 2 1/2 tablespoons of maple syrup. So I've got some, oh my, I've got some pure maple syrup here. And I'm going to go ahead and add this. there's our 2½ tablespoons. And then we want to mix that really well. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and add in our dry ingredients that we mixed together earlier. Our flour, salt, baking powder, and baking soda. And we're going to go ahead and mix that in really well also. All right, here we go. Okay, so I've got my baking sheet here. And we are going to put some parchment paper on it. And then I've got my medium cookie scoop, which I think is a tablespoon. And we're going to, I'm going to scoop up balls of dough. And then I'm going to roll it so it's more ball shaped. And we're going to roll it in that brown and white sugar mixture. This dough is pretty soft, so it's kind of hard to make the ball, but that's okay. And then we're going to put those on our baking sheet. And we're going to bake these for 10 to 12 minutes. So these should be fairly decent sized cookies. I don't want them to spread into each other, so I'm just going to put 2 cookies across. So we're going to get 8 cookies on a sheet since I'm leaving them a little bit farther apart. So it's been really fairly cool this whole week where I am. We're supposed to have a couple of warm days, Monday and Tuesday, and then it's supposed to drop back down, and hopefully those will be our last days in the upper 80s, and then we'll drop back into the mid to upper 70s. So I'm excited for that. Even though I really like summer, I'm always excited for fall. I was thinking about this yesterday. And except for spring, I tend to enjoy the beginning of the season more than the end of the season. So I love the beginning of summer when everything is starting to turn green and it's warm, the kids are out of school, you can go to the pool, go to the lake, all of that fun stuff. But by the end of summer, I'm tired of the heat. It's dry. It's, you know, I love fall. I love fall. If it didn't end with winter, I would be super happy. But by the time it runs into, you know, technically winter starts right before Christmas. And I like the beginning of winter because we're finishing out the holidays. But the end of winter is just, it's cold and it's boring and it's yuck. But then spring, I love both the beginning of spring and the ending of spring because that means we're getting into gardening season, and that always makes me happy. Okay, so I've got 2 trays here with 8 cookies each. Whoa, spread these out a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the oven. We're gonna cook these about, I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes and then I'll check them and see if they need the other 2. So while those are baking, I'm gonna go ahead and roll out the rest of my dough and get it rolled in the sugar mixture. And I'm just going to set that on this paper plate, and then I can go ahead and clean up my utensils and things so I can get ready for the next recipe. Alright, so while those bake, I washed everything up. We're going to go ahead and start on our chewy ginger snap cookies. So we need 3/4 of a cup of butter, and then we need regular sugar and brown sugar. So here's our 1/4 that we had left from our last recipe. And there's our half so that we can end up with 3/4. Then we need a 1/2 cup of regular granulated sugar and a 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar. So there's our granulated sugar. There we go. And we are going to mix this until it's well combined and creamy. Alright, so our 10-minute timer went off on our cookies. They were not quite done, so I went ahead and put the other 2 minutes in there, or on the timer. So now to our butter and sugar, we're going to add molasses, vanilla, and our spices. So we need 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla and 3 tablespoons of molasses. Alright, so now we're going to add all of our seasonings, our spices. We need ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and cayenne pepper. We need 2½ teaspoons of ginger, 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Alright, and there's our cookies. So we're going to let these cool for a few minutes until I can get them off the sheet and put them on the cooling rack to cool, and then we'll get the rest of these in the oven. So we've got our cookies on the rack to cool, so we're going to go ahead and put this, I don't know where I'm looking. We're going to go ahead and put these other cookies on here and get those baking. And these did not spread out as much as I thought they were going to. So I'm going to try and get all of them on this cookie sheet. So we'll get these in the oven and get them started baking. So we've got our cookies cooling. So let's go ahead and finish up with this. So I just added all my spices. Molasses, vanilla, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and cayenne pepper, and we're going to mix this up really well. So now we're going to mix our dry ingredients up in our bowl here. 2 1/4 cups of flour. Whoa. There's 1 teaspoon of baking powder. 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to go ahead and stir all these dry ingredients together, and then we're going to add them into our wet mixture. add this in gradually and go ahead and mix it in. Okay. I'm going to give this a little stir and just make sure that there's nothing on the bottom of the mixer that didn't get mixed in. Looks good. Alright, so I'm going to use a smaller scoop for these cookies, and we're just going to roll these in regular granulated sugar. Let me get a little more in my bowl here. So we're just going to do the same thing. Scoop these up, roll them into balls, and roll them in the sugar and put them on our baking sheet. And then we're going to bake these 10 to 11 minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and wait. Well, I've got cookies still in the oven, so we're going to put this sheet out of the way and wait for those cookies to be done. While we're waiting though, I'm going to try one of these cookies. I want to do the smallest one if I can find it. I'll do this one because it's kind of funky looking. So, ooh, it smells delicious. Mmm. Ooh, these are good. Hannah, would you like to try?
Here we go.
Okay, here.
Thank you.
Hannah's trying, but she won't come on camera. She likes them. They're really good. So while that other batch of cookies is finishing baking, I'm going to go ahead and roll up some more of this dough and put it in the sugar. Okay, so I put the rest of our ginger snap dough in the refrigerator. It was starting to get warm and too sticky for the cookie scoop. So as soon as these are cool enough that I can take them off here and put them on the rack, I'll go ahead and load this pan up and we'll get both of those pans into the oven to start baking. Alright, so we're going to get these ginger snaps in the oven. And again, I just started with 10 minutes and we'll see how they look after 10 minutes if we need to give them that other minute or two. Alright, so the first batch of the ginger snaps are done. So I need to make a space for them on this cooling rack. Oops. This, oh yeah. Having this in the fridge made a big difference. So if you guys watched any of my Christmas baking videos last Christmas, I have some chocolate crinkle cookies that I make that have to go in the fridge between batches because they get too soft. And so these are kind of the same thing. So I'll get the rest of these rolled out and ready to go, and then as soon as I can get these first batch off the trays, we'll get the second batch made and in the oven. And then I'll probably go ahead and clean everything up again before we start the next batch while the last bit of the cookies are baking. That way I've got clean everything to start with. These probably would have been okay since they used most of the same ingredients, but the next thing we're making is the cranberry, what is it called? Cranberry orange shortbread cookies. So I want to make sure I get all the other ingredients, all those flavors out of here. So my daughter asked me what I was going to do with all of these cookies, and we'll keep some of them, of course, but some of them I'm going to share with our neighbors. Some of them I'm going to take to work with me when I go into the office next week. I told them I was baking this weekend. I was bringing them cookies, so they were super excited. So these are not all going to hang out in our house because that would be terrible because I would probably eat them all. I would love them, my pants, not so much. All right, so I'm gonna get this one in the oven and get it baking. While that batch is baking, I'm gonna go ahead and wash my bowl and my beater, and then we'll get started on the other cookies. Okay, the first thing we need to do is, so this is cranberry orange shortbread cookies, and we want to mix up some cranberries and some sugar, and we just want to do that to kind of break our cranberries up. Hopefully I can remember how to use this, this little food processor. So I need, let's see, a 1/4 cup of sugar. Whoa. And a 1/2 cup of dried cranberries. All right, so, okay. All right, so we just want to do that until our cranberries are smaller. So I'm going to take this and put it in that bowl. So you can see, next we are going to put 2½ cups of flour. And it says to spoon it, not scoop it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So there's our first cup. All right, there we go. So there's our 2½ cups of flour. We want a 1/2 cup of sugar. And we want 1 cup of butter cubed, and we're going to cut this into our flour. So I wish I had started with my bigger food processor, but I didn't, and that's okay. I'm just going to do a little bit of this at a time. So what I'm going to do is put some of this butter and some of this flour sugar mixture in my food processor. I'll do like 1/2 and 1/2. And we're going to go ahead and let our food processor do the work for us. All right. Because the instructions say that you want these in really fine crumbs. So will do a much better job than I can. And it was much faster. So I'm going to go ahead and just Kind of mix all of this together. Make sure that it's all crumbly. Kind of got smashed together in that one, in the first batch. But I got to get our other cookies out of the oven. So we'll go ahead and just let those cool while we work on this. All right, so now we are going to add in almond extract and our cranberry sugar mixture. For our almond extract, we want 1 teaspoon. And we're going to add a little bit of orange juice. It does say to add orange extract, which I missed yesterday, and I don't have any oranges, so we need about a tablespoon or so of this orange juice. And then we're just going to use our hands, and we're going to mix this all together until we can form it into a ball, which it looks like it's already doing that. And I'm super disappointed that I forgot to get the orange, but that's okay. The orange juice will help. Actually, I think I need just a little more. So, what we're going to do now, ooh, this might be a little bit too wet now. We are going to roll this into a log that's about 2 inches in diameter, and I need to wash my hands. So we're going to roll this until it's about 2 inches in diameter, and then we're going to wrap this in plastic, and we're going to let it chill in the fridge for 2 hours so that we can cut it. And then when we get ready to bake this, we'll just do like slice and bake. All right, so there's what this looks like, and you can see it's really soft. So I'm going to stick it in the fridge, and we're going to go ahead and get this other batch of the ginger snaps off our pan and onto this cooling rack. If I'd been really paying attention to my recipes, we would have started with this one, and then it would have been ready to bake now. But that's okay. Oh my gosh. I am a complete dingling. So I didn't add our cranberries. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. That's probably why this was so sticky. All right. We want to add our cranberries and sugar in this, or it's not really going to be a cranberry dessert, is it? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and use my hands and add the cranberry for our cranberry cookies, because that makes way more sense. Okay, let's try this. All right, we're gonna roll this back out. I'm glad I saw that before we were ready to bake them. That would have been bad. Okay, try this again. Okay, now it's going in the fridge. And you can leave these in the refrigerator before you bake them for up to 3 days. We're not going to do that. Obviously, we're going to bake these today. But so now we're going to move on to our maple glazed apple blondies. Okay, so we're going to start by putting together our apple filling. And we need 2 large apples. And we want them finely chopped. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these up. I'm going to go ahead and cut these up and chop them really finely. And I have one of those apple peeler core things from Pampered Chef. You can get them pretty much anywhere now. But as few, you know, I'm only doing 2 apples, so I don't want to take the time to get it out, set it up, clean it up. So I'm just going to do it like this. This will be fine. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this apple in our pot. To this, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, a tablespoon of butter, some vanilla, and cinnamon. Half a teaspoon of vanilla and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So we're going to get this on the stove and we're going to cook it about 3 or 4 minutes and then let it cool. Alright, so while our apple filling is cooking, we're going to go ahead and start the rest of our dough. So we need 1 cup of butter, and we're just going to let that mix until it's light and fluffy. So I'm just going to turn that on and let it go. Except I got to plug it back in first. Definitely works better if it's plugged in. See? Amazing. All right, so now we need a 1/4 cup of sugar and 1 cup of our dark brown sugar. So I guess it's good that I made the dark brown this morning because that's what everything called for. So that's awesome. I'm gonna get these marshmallows out though because they are in my way. And I'll probably go ahead and make up some more brown sugar when I'm all done with all my recipes. So we need a cup of this. Basically it's just going to be everything that I have left in here. Alright, so our apple filling now is all done. So I'm just going to move this to the back burner of my stove so it can start cooling off. So I've added both my brown sugar and my white sugar, and now we're just going to mix this in really well with our butter. Okay, so now to our batter, we're going to add 2 eggs, and we're going to add them 1 at a time and then mix well in between. Alright, so we're going to add our dry ingredients and mix that up as well. And we need 2 cups of flour. And of course, it says to do this in a separate bowl, and I'm not going to do that this time. So there's 2 cups. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And a half a teaspoon of salt. And I read that as a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and it should have been 1 1/2. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another teaspoon. All right, so we're gonna just mix this all up. While that's mixing, I'm gonna try one of these ginger snaps. These are good too. What do you think, Hannah? You don't like a ginger. That's probably what you're tasting.
I'll go like cinnamon.
Hannah doesn't like them. Okay. Because she's a weirdo and doesn't like cinnamon. They've got a little kick to them. Between the cinnamon and the cayenne pepper. Really good. I'm gonna get all this batter down here and give it a little stir. Just make sure that I don't have anything in the bottom of my mixing bowl. And I do not. Okay, so we want to spread about half of it in the bottom of our pan. Whoops. That's probably half. The author says that you can use your spatula or you can use your hand. She usually uses her hand because it's thick, which it definitely is. And I think I might have to use my fingers too. So I did get them wet though, and see if that helped me spread it without it sticking to my fingers. I think it is. Okay. All right, so got that in the bottom of the pan, and then we're going to spread our pie filling over that first layer of blondie mix. Just kind of want to spread it as evenly as you can get it. And then we're going to top it with the rest of our dough. And again, I'm just going to wet my fingers so that the dough is a little bit easier to manage. And it doesn't want to spread very well over the top of that apple. That's okay. Do our best. It's starting to stick to me again a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to bake this at a 350-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. The top should be golden brown, and a cake tester or a toothpick should come out clean. So I'm going to wash my hands off, and then we're going to get that in the oven. So I set that for 25 minutes. I'll check it at 25. If we need more time, I'll go ahead and add more time. So we'll be back when everything is done. So while that's baking, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my mess for the last time. And when that's done, our cranberry cookies should be ready to slice and bake as well. Our dough is pretty solid now, so I'm going to go ahead and unroll it, and we're going to start slicing it. And then if it gets too warm, we'll stick it back in the fridge. But I think we should be good. So we're going to take each slice, and we're going to dip it in sugar, cover both sides. And these aren't exactly round because that's okay. My log isn't round, it's more flat on the bottom side, but that's okay. They'll still be good. I probably should have rounded it back out once it started getting, once it was not quite so soft, so that it would stay, but I'm not going to now. I'm just going to bake them like this, and I'm sure they will get eaten. And as soon as our blondies are done, we'll go ahead and get these in the oven. These need a 325 oven, so I'll go ahead and turn it down once our blondies come out. Alright, so there's the first tray. Let's see if I can round this out. Except my cutting board is trying to run away on me. Alright, these are slightly more round, but Probably if I wanted them really round, I'd have to use like a piece of thread or something so I don't smash them when I cut them. But these are not for a contest, they're just to eat, so it is okay if they have a little flat piece. And hopefully I can get all of this dough onto these 2 trays and not have like 1 cookie left or something crazy. So our blondies have 3 more minutes, assuming 25 is enough. But like I said, I will check them. If we need a couple more minutes, we'll go ahead and get to them. All right. So there's all of our cookies. Okay, I can't really tell if these are done. The toothpick came out clean, but they still seem a little wiggly. I left it in for an additional 5 minutes. So we're just gonna let it cool in there and see how it looks. So I've got our shortbread cookies in the oven, and we'll see how those turn out here in about 10 more minutes. All right, so the first batch of our shortbread cookies are done. The other tray needs another 5 or so minutes. So there we go. So I've got a bucket of cookies for Joe and I to keep here. I've got a tray of cookies that I've started that I'm going to take to work with me. I've got some others here that I will share with our neighbors. So I think we made great progress today. We got lots of delicious goodies made for fall, for all those delicious fall flavors. So just a reminder, the next video, maybe not the next video that comes out, but the next video of fall baking will be all about pumpkins. So all of our recipes for that day will involve pumpkin. I just want to say thanks to you guys for watching as I work through all these new recipes and taste them. Everything is delicious, as I suspected that they would be. I also wanted to remind you there's a link down in the description box to sign up for my newsletter. It's free, and it just gives you a little bit of insight into some of the things that might be going on our farm or in our lives, or just a little more information about us. If you'd like to sign up, I would appreciate that. And then you'll just get an email once a week. You can cancel it, you can unsubscribe at any time. But anyway, I just want to say thanks, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye guys.